four of us on hand today. Tyler is streaming from parts unknown. And we're going to kick things off by talking about everybody's favorite subject matter, the state of the comic book industry.
Nice. Let's go. Thriving.
We'll
Right?
see. We'll see. So there's a tremendous article that was done by Sketched. And they're an online publication that, talks about comics. And they do like I don't know if it's annual or exactly how often they get into it, but they check in with retailers. And I want to actually shout out the name of I want to shout out the writer because, again, it's a tremendous
David
piece.
Harper.
Thank you, David Harper. I'm going to reference this a lot throughout this conversation because it forms the basis of what we're going to be talking about. I highly encourage anybody who finds this conversation interesting to read the whole thing for yourself. There will be stuff that is left out of this just due to the nature of time. With those things in play, hello and welcome to the show. If you're watching us live, happy to have you guys. Let's get into it. I'm reading directly from it now. Coming off a multi-year high that began in 2020, things were solid when I checked in with comic shops in January. Sales were steady, manga was popping, and other categories had seen growth. While there were points of consternation, healthy numbers can act as a balm for even the most troubled comic retailer's soul. Ultimately, the good outweighed the bad last year. But it was clear there were storm clouds on the horizon, if not there already. It wasn't because sales were down dramatically, or even across the board. It was because everything was harder and more exhausting than it had been before, with several retailers not even understanding how they came out of 2022 ahead. It's like Bruno Batista from Dublin's Big Bang Comics put it at the time, quote, "The uncertainty is bigger than ever for retailers." They were hopeful, of course. Comic retailers are a hardy bunch, passionate individuals eager to do their job and do it well. But doubt was seeping into the picture. Shops were surviving or even thriving in some cases. They just didn't always feel very good about it. If that was the case then the bad vibes have only gotten more pervasive since. Just as before, it isn't because everyone's sales have evaporated. Some shops are level or even up from 2022, albeit fewer than before. It's just a lack of faith in publishing partners and the material itself taking hold, particularly when it comes to single issues. That's for good reason. Much of it isn't working. More than that, the job has gotten harder and the margins tighter. That was more palpable during the boom times of 2021. Higher costs are easier to deal with when everything was selling. But as Joe Field of Concord, California's Flying Colors Comics put it to me, sales shifting back towards pre-pandemic levels, but with post-pandemic costs is, quote, not a recipe for success. That's been a consistent message throughout the year. Much of the positive energy and sentiment has dissipated, replaced with uncertainty and frustration. It's a make or break time in the direct market and one that deserves focus. So, today, we're going to give it just that, as we will be looking at the year so far in comics retail, examining how things are going, what's working, what isn't, amongst a group of retailers as we head into the back half of a year filled with question marks. That is gloomy.
Yeah. Yeah, even off that, like my own personal experience in Britain, coming into the reality of post-Brexit, January hit us like a freight train. I left my job to go to school in September, and now like we are drowning, and it's not just us. So I can only imagine what a comic book retailer is going through, especially when these companies are continually raising prices in the midst of continual escalating financial hardships for everyone.
Yeah, you can't offset those things, and I think even on that end, the retailers have to deal with costs being passed on to them from publishers with, the increase in paper stock and just costs associated to transporting goods. So that goes down the line, from them to the retailer to us, and it just makes it much more costly.
Yeah, and I want to say this up front before we continue. This is going to be a bit of a downer look at the industry as it stands right now. But I also want to say that the headline of this article is funny, and I think it's pretty appropriate. It could be better, but it could be worse. It's not as bad as it's been in the past. The situation is not as dire as it's been. Shops are making more money by and large than they were 10 years ago. But that doesn't take into account what you guys talked about, which is rising costs of everything. And interest in comics waning a bit, which you're going to hear about here in just a moment. Referring back to the article, take this line from Brower. Brower is one of the sellers, who said, "While there are certainly winners in today's market, I don't know that there will be big winners anymore. Even the best sellers for us sell a fraction of what bestsellers sold in years past." And that's from Patrick Brower out of Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago.
And that's damning, because the best sellers even a few years ago were selling a fraction of what they were selling a few years before that.
Continues to diminish.
Yeah.
Diminish and go for it.
I'm so removed from retail stores at this point. Like, I am completely digital, besides the occasional collection that I grab. But even then, I'm getting at those half price websites and stuff. So it is the only data I have, whether or not there's new stores opening up near me, and there aren't really. So this is very interesting to me.
Right, and I think that's a good point. Let's talk about how the pandemic impacted the industry, right? We saw a lot of store closures, not as many as we necessarily thought we would, but they did happen. And some people, look, if you live in the Midwest, or if you live in a small town, maybe that shop that you went to it might have been 20 minutes away. It might have been 30 minutes away on a drive. Maybe that was the only shop in a 2-hour radius of you. Or maybe an hour radius. Maybe you don't want to drive an hour. Maybe that's difficult. Maybe you don't have the means of getting to a shop anymore like you used to. That impacts a lot of people that then do what Tyler said. Maybe they go digital. Maybe they decide they're going to buy their books from an online retailer like a Midtown Comics, which is the same as the rich getting richer. Midtown Comics is a dominant retailer in the market. And we have people in our community who order their books directly from them online. And then that's a double dip because Midtown Comics is also Lunar, I believe.
Yeah,
so
distributor.
Yeah. So that's kind of crazy when you think about it. Go ahead.
It's interesting because I actually went to Anyone Comics maybe last week or the week prior, and they actually opened up a new store in Long Island, in Long Island City.
Really?
Called Everyone Comics. Yeah.
I know that.
Wow, good for them.
Me neither. And so I haven't yet gone to visit, but I think that's indicative of proximity. There's so many people in New York that volume-wise, and Demetrios, the owner, who we've interviewed, if you guys want to go check out that on the YouTube, but they've been able to grow and he does a good job of catering and bringing you into the store. He does other things, Magic the Gathering, games in the back, and even when I went there last time, there were people in the basement doing playing some series of board games. So you have to sort of break outside of that box of comics to some degree, but they're lucky enough that they're able to continue to grow and see that growth, and I think it speaks to the individual retailer as well.
That does matter, and I think it's also worth pointing out that the retailers who were interviewed for this are not all the retailers that exist.
Sure.
So, you know, every store's experience is going to be different due to the nature of the fact that the stores are run by individuals. You don't necessarily have that in Best Buy because the young teen that sells you DVDs at Best Buy is just that person. Whereas when you go to the local comic shop, the dude that owns that place, they control what you see, what you don't see, the narrative around the books that are available for purchase. Maybe they're racist, maybe they're a douchebag, and you know you don't want to go anymore. Those factors don't really exist in other bigger types of stores and chains. So let's move forward. Joe Field out of Flying Colors Comics in California said, "It's sad to say that everything is down." When asked about, you know, sales. What Flying Colors is seeing is a painful combination of fewer people buying and each of those individuals purchasing less. That resulted in a sales dip of 17% so far this year. This is him again, Field. Over the last couple of years, an average transaction would be about $45. And this year, we're running in the $40 range. When you take that drop and then reduce the number of total transactions, that's what gets you to 17% down from 2022 in terms of sales.
It's interesting that from 45 to 40, I also imagine the number of books, because they've seen a smaller decrease in the volume, that also probably means that even though it's a $5 difference, the cost of those books have seen that increase. And so you're getting less volume, but you're still paying out a similar or increased amount. And we've seen that across the board with the spikes of prices.
Atomic Hound points out that DCBS is lunar. Thank you. I appreciate the correction. Look at that. David Acevedo. I got to drive like 40 minutes to an hour.
Damn.
That's rough.
Commitment.
Yeah, that's rough. And that's, I take a train to get to my LCS, and that's like a 30-minute train ride, but there's no gas cost associated with that. So when you factor that in, what David is saying is that if that's both ways, you're talking about a near 2-hour drive. And that and maybe you don't give a damn. Maybe you're like, you know what, it's worth it for me to do that. But is it worth it in gas to do that? That's tough. Now,
imagine doing that commute and then you get something like AXE Judgment Day. Like, it's like
Well, I was
the next
about to
one
say,
might not be worth it.
this last week's worth of Pals polls sure wasn't worth the 2-hour trip's gas. Like,
listen, it wasn't worth the cash either. Let me tell you what.
it wasn't even worth the digital codes.
I'll tell you what.
Not for that Infinite Comic Hellfire Gala. That disaster. I broke this out into the next bit, into positives and negatives. I didn't want to just read from the article directly and read comments. I wanted to establish that, yes, there are positives, but there are also negatives. So we're going to go over those, and we're going to break this down. I'm going to start with the positives. And I think a lot of these are predictable. I think a lot of this stuff is stuff we've talked about already. So one clear example, you guys will be obvious. Some stores seeing big numbers for Dawn of DC because the overall quality of books has been higher. It's not just Batman, as Superman books and Green Lantern and others are seeing growth as well. And that was a key throughout this whole article, was that quality content, quality comic books seem to be a bigger driver of sales. We've regaled how good Superman books have been recently. And that quality is actually resulting in greater sales. Look at that. What a big shock. You put good books out, people show up.
Yep.
Wild.
I know, right? Even Batman. I think Batman's been fantastic. The Chip Zdarsky Batman stuff. Even Detective Comics, Rom V. You know, it's exciting. People are into this stuff. Another big hit was Void Rivals #1. And it took something that a lot of creators don't do, but some do, to be fair, but a lot don't, which is that the creative team put the work in to call retail shops and let them know what was going to happen in the book. Obviously, we know now Void Rivals debuted the Energon universe, which is the shared universe with Transformers and G.I. Joe, the Hasbro stuff. They called retailers to let them know. One retailer said, I was ready to order 25 copies of this comic book before they called me. I ordered 100. I have 15 left. That's tremendous.
Not bad.
That's great. That sucks that creators had to be the ones calling. Like, well,
I mean,
that's the image thing also. Is, you know,
Skybound specifically, I think, is very good with talking to shops and doing cool shop things. Like, remember when United States of what's that weed book that came out? There was like a weed book that came out from Skybound, and there was also Die Die Die, which was like a surprise drop that was like a Kirkman, Chris Burnham book, I think.
Yeah.
So I think they work specifically with retailers very well. Not even Image as a whole, but specifically Skybound.
I feel like Scott Snyder did quite a bit of that too, especially in the early days.
Yep. Robert Kirkman is a perfect example of a grinder in comics. He understands, because Invincible and The Walking Dead didn't start off doing great numbers. He understands that the connection with the retailer is one of the major things that can help you sell books, because if they say, hey, we're going to push this Walking Dead thing and we're going to get it in the hands of, I don't know, 20 of our people, maybe that's 20 new people who then go online and talk about it and increase the profile of that comic book. Invincible is what it is today because of word of mouth and nothing else. It was already over when the show debuted. So no one can say, oh, it got the Walking Dead type bump. That's not the case. That's hard work on the creative team's part.
Hustle.
Yeah. Moving forward in the positives, characters who've been in movies recently, like Miles, Gwen, and Spider-Punk, generated interest at shops, as did DC books mentioned by James Gunn as inspiring his new universe.
Yeah, we talked about that too. Like surely there was going to be some sort of increase because he's been so chatty about that stuff.
Well, and we've talked about that since day one.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you have characters that exist in a place already, you should be able to find them.
I almost hate how novel an idea that was, because it just makes sense to us, you know?
Yeah.
Even James Gunn recently, he just tweeted out hyping up DC's Eisner wins. You know, like having someone that big, you know, just a tweet or a zeet or whatever the fuck is called right now.
Skeet, I think it is.
Oh yeah, so James Gunn skeeted out this news, and like that's the most minimum amount of effort to do something, but I'm sure that helps sales across the board for collected stuff.
Yep.
James Gunn is a bigger name than every single comic book writer combined. So that'll definitely do it.
Yep.
And we've got a lot of people, by the way, sharing their stories in chat of their LCS experience and stuff like that. I love seeing that. Please keep it up. And I love the fact that you guys make the pilgrimage. That's a special thing that only we share with each other. What other industry is it that you do this kind of thing? You know, no one really goes anymore to be like, I gotta go get my DVDs for the week. You know, that's not really a thing anymore. This is the last bastion. You know, music. We used to make the trip to the music shop or Blockbuster or what have you. All that's done. Comics is the last one. So it's special to me. Evergreen graphic novel sales have been good, with owners like Jen King from Space Cadets Collection in Texas saying, quote, we can hardly keep evergreen graphic novels in stock. By the way, Jen King is awesome. I met her at New York Comic Con last year.
Nice.
But that's true, and we know that to be true about evergreen graphic novels, because when you go to any website, if you type in, you know, top 10 Batman books, it's always the same books. If you type in, you know, best Marvel stories, it's always the same ones. And so it's a repeating effect where the same books that have been selling are the ones that are going to keep selling, because those are the ones that everybody puts on those lists and talks about. And so they can't keep them on the stands.
I mean, a good problem to have, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
As long as they can keep as long as the publishers can keep pumping that out, then there's that piece of lifeline, I feel. And then at that point it becomes the job of the retailer to be like, hey, this is great, this is how you get deeper, this is how you continue the story, this is, and that's where again, bringing up Demetrius from Anyone Comics, that's what he does, right? That he comes in and he's like, oh yeah, you know what, you liked Invincible, well, check it out, Robert Kirkman, the writer, did this, the artist XYZ did this. Like, you engage with the individual, you bring them back, you become that source, that point of trust for an individual, and that's customer service at the end of the day.
And I think a lot of the retailers that succeed, like Anyone Comics, they supplement with other stuff. Anyone Comics has drink and draw events. They have game nights, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So a lot of these comic shops that like just do comics, as much as it sucks, you can't just do comics at a comic book shop anymore. You kind of have to have something else to supplement that, at least to succeed enough to even open up another shop. So,
yeah.
Especially if you are speaking about Western comics, right? Like, most of these places now have to sell manga as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But they can't just sell, Marvel, DC, Image, take your pick. And, it is what it is. I guess different times call for different strategies. Unfortunately, though, those are the positives that I had. Those are the positives that I took out of this article for the state of comics right now. And
long list.
Yeah. And in years prior, the list has been longer. There have been more positives and good things to speak of. It seems as though the retailers are just down on selling comics, not necessarily even because sales are down. It's because everything is harder. And that's what I'm going to get into now. So retailers were asked, quote, what isn't working? And one owner said, everything is the succinct answer to this. And then they added, I don't remember seeing regular customers so despondent about what they're buying. Another,
what they're buying.
Right.
Wow.
Right. It's weird. When you read the article, it's almost like the retailers are describing that buyers are like doing it because they do it, if that makes sense. Like zombies.
Natural.
They actually
Exactly
use,
how.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's exactly how it. We've talked about that. A lot of collectors will just come in and pick up Batman. And that's or all these people that pick up Spider-Man all the time, and then go online and bitch about it. It's just they come in and they pick it up, but there's no passion there.
They've fallen into this like just habit of, well, I'm gonna go to the store, and I think because they also don't diversify as much, then to your point, KO, they limit themselves to, well, I'm only gonna read this batch, and I don't like it, and so this is gonna be reflective of what I feel the industry is at, or the quality of books at X publisher is at, because, well, the ones that I've always gotten are no longer the same and feel different, and I don't like that, and I'm not willing to spend that extra $1, or I guess extra $3-4 to go pick something else up that maybe I'll have a better time with, and change mindset.
Yeah, I can speak for myself. I mean, you guys know I buy a lot of comics, and the unfortunate reality is that I don't read a lot of them. Like, a lot of the books that I read don't get read because, it takes time to do it. And obviously I have a responsibility to read a certain amount for the show as it is. But there are books that I bought James Tynion's entire Batman run, and I don't know if I read a single issue. I'm not even sure.
Jeez.
Yep.
And with the amount of you have, who knows when you're going to get to that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Comic book, like Wednesday Warriors, are total masochist. And honestly, I think a lot of them like it. Like I think there is some weird pleasure with being able to complain about stuff that I think some Wednesday Warriors have, especially Spider-Man fans. But like I'm one of them. Like I don't collect physically, but I still have every physical issue of Saga, even the new ones. Like that's the only one I still
yeah,
collect.
same.
And I'm behind. I'm behind like a whole arc right now.
Me
But
too.
yeah, comic fans are just built different, I think.
Well, but also I do think it speaks also to the quality of the material.
Hmm.
You know, Zebwell stuff is good, but it's just Spider-Man stuff. You know, it's good if you come here for Spider-Man stuff, but what landmark stuff is happening in that book? You know, there aren't chances being taken.
I'm sorry.
There's no
Did you not see the death of Miss Marvel?
And then 3 days before I saw the death of Miss Marvel, I knew she was coming back because Marvel announced it and then brought back her whole. Whoa, I just got real mad about that. God damn. But like, you know, they're not taking chances, and then they're undercutting the chances that they take. So there's nothing there for anybody.
I'm going to go back to the negatives. And this is the first bullet point that I have. Single issues have been a hard sell, with readers seeming to be buying the books just because, as we just outlined, without much enthusiasm. And a lot of the big tentpole books haven't been working. Ultimate Invasion's price point hurt its sales. A lot of the retailers in this article talked about how Ultimate Invasion #1, being an $8.99 comic, made it so that they just couldn't justify ordering a ton of copies. And that a lot of people saw that price point and said, yeah, that's not happening, and put it down.
I will never buy an $8.99 floppy issue of a comic. That's insane.
It's bad.
Can't do it, dude. It's not worth the risk.
I used to buy the same Marvel trades at that price.
$2 more and you basically get an Image first trade. Like that's more value. That's the thing. It's a comparison between the value you get, and we talk about this all the time, of how disposable is that comic after you read it. Am I gonna get maybe 64 pages, sure, of a bigger book, maybe bigger format, nice card stock, whatever, or I'll read 4 or 5 issues and get invested into potentially a series long term.
The one hit was Dawn of DC, the biggest hit coming out of the big two. Let's go. And even that comes with a downside. As enthusiastic as retailers were about that initiative, the fact that all of its titles are immediately going away for 2 months, so a line-wide horror event in Night Terrors can replace them, is enough to drive retailers mad. But Bruno Batista described it as, quote, not just shooting their own foot, they did it with a bazooka. It could cost the publisher all the gains they made during the beginning of Dawn of DC. Have we not discussed that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Had good momentum.
That's just dumb. It smacks of, we can do whatever we want. And a lot of the decisions that Marvel and DC make me feel like that. So imagine being a retailer. Let's establish something right now. Here's how the direct market works. I've said this many times, but there's always someone new listening. Stores order the books way in advance, and they pay for their copies. There is no returnability, or very limited returnability. And the returnability rules are very different for different publishers and different books and things like that. So what that means is that if Marvel sells the $8.99 Ultimate Invasion to a shop, and whatever price the shop pays, like let's say they pay $4 or whatever, they're not getting that back if they can't sell their copies of Ultimate Invasion. Marvel made their money. So that means that Marvel, in this case, has retailers by the short hairs. We're going to sell you this book. You're going to buy it because you don't want to miss out. It could be hot. It could be the biggest thing ever. You don't know. But if it's not, it doesn't matter to us because we already sold it. So retailers have to eat that. And think about this. If you're you're a Wednesday warrior, you go to the shop, what are you looking for? The newest book. What happens to the books that don't sell from the week before? At my LCS, which is enormous, they just get put on a lower shelf. But at other LCSs that aren't as big, they get put in the back. How do you sell that shit?
Can't. Like, it's hard because then people got to go diving for that. And I don't think that that's a I don't think that's a way to engage a customer, because going through back issues, that's stuff that, you know, you're like deep in already into the culture. You know, you got to go digging through your long boxes and filtering whatever. But someone new is like, oh, that looks like a lot. I'm not going to do that. I need accessibility.
I want to take a moment to address this comment from Who That Pro 7297. Welcome. I've not seen your name before, so thank you for joining us. I'm looking to get into comics, but still figuring out the best way to go about it. Is it better to buy online? I think that depends a lot on the kind of person you are and where you live. So buying comic books can be daunting for some people. If you are not necessarily comfortable going to a shop and not knowing what you're there to buy and browsing, then it might be better to start online just to sort of get a feel for what books you like, what you don't like, and, you know, the state of things, and then take it from there. If you've got an LCS near you, which you can look up online, then you can go there and check it out, scope it out, see if you like the selection. It's, in my opinion, it's better to go knowing what you want. That way you have an idea of what you're there to buy, so it removes some of that anxiety of being a new person and not knowing what you want. And you can see if the vibe is right. And if the vibe is right, then you've got a home. And if it's not, try again somewhere else or stick to online. I think that's probably the safest way to go about it, but your mileage may vary. Do you guys want to add to that at all?
Yeah, if you're doing online, I would stick to physical if you're a physical buyer doing issue by issue, because you're paying the same amount digitally. So, you know, you might as well have the physical copy. But as far as like getting into history and older collections and like the good stuff, you can get, you know, the Marvel Unlimited or the DC Infinite, or I mean, you could try Comixology Unlimited, but I wouldn't recommend it. And get those subscriptions at, you know, their monthly, you know, $7.99 or whatever it is, and you'll get, you know, decades of backlog that will, you know, fill you in on characters you like, and, you know, you'll get that deep history of just all the stuff that you are interested in. And you can, and, you know, each of them have curated lists of the good stuff to read. So those are great places to start for all that.
Agreed.
Ooh, Matt makes a great point in the chat. Don't forget about your local library either.
That's a good point.
Libraries freaking love introducing people to comics.
Underrated comment. Yeah, absolutely. Marvel was specifically called out as a problem. Quote, much of its line, particularly its incessant minis with no clear audience, are unmovable. And that's the biggest publisher in the direct market.
Interesting. The minis.
Yeah.
I just read all of Hollow's Eve, that mini by Erica Schultz based on that character from the Dark Web event, and like it was good, but like they're right. Who is that for? Like it's 5 issues. It just finished. Who knows when we're gonna see the character again? They kind of tease it at the end, like, oh, there's an annual coming up and there's a special coming up later, but like 5 issues. I would rather read that in a trade, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I just binged it. The 5th issue just came out this week, so I read all of it this week. But yeah, I can't imagine that reading that month to month.
And I think that's more accessible to people. Is I'm gonna have a single book instead of getting them into this rhythm of got to come back and for all 5 issues. Like if that's the bar for entry for people to want to read, I think that there needs to be like a rethinking of it, because one, is it worth publishing individual floppies? I'm assuming that's more expensive over the course of publication than it is to do a single trade. Yeah, and you can make that work a bit better, more cost effective, and at that point you have a better product for the consumer as well. And also I put up a poll on if anybody reads previews for comics. We had a question in the chat, so curious on that one.
Interesting. Yeah, update us on that a little bit later, Marco.
Mm-hmm.
Does previews cost anything?
That's a good question. I don't think so, but
The book itself, I don't think.
I don't read it. I have no idea.
I've never bought it. Yeah, or I've never read it. However, it's,
I don't even know if I've looked at it.
Yeah. I mean, to what Marco's saying though, right? Like those minis that you could theoretically publish as trades. The fact that the individual issues are hard to sell doesn't matter to Marvel. It only matters to retailers. There is no risk involved for Marvel. They made their money already if retailers decide to order it. But when you look at these books, it's like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm grateful that Erica Schultz got a shot. She's actually really cool. Seen her a lot at Comic-Con. I don't care about Hallows' Eve, and I don't have a reason to buy it. It's not interesting to me. You know, you establish that character somewhere else, make sure she's hot, prove it, give me a great creative team, and then I'll show up. But I'm not going to buy, I wouldn't even buy the trade. Why would I even buy the trade? We're talking about like a $3.99 investment over 5 issues versus a $20 investment in one shot. I'll give a first issue a shot of pretty much anything, but I'm not going to buy a $20 trade sight unseen, unproven, especially not on a creative team that doesn't have the biggest names. There's no way. No way.
It's a tough balance
Yeah.
at that point.
I think
Classy.
Spiral Storm in the chat said hot take. I think they should get rid of floppies. If they do that, then characters like Hallows' Eve won't exist. You know what I mean? Like you kind of need them to launch new characters. Nobody's buying a $25 book for a character they never heard of before.
But nobody's buying Hallows' Eve either. Like, they're shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic.
You lose kind of either way to some degree.
I think the problem is that publishers and retailers would be even less likely to take risks. And we would see even more Batman, even more, Spider-Man. When you look at Black Label, which is the most expensive line of comics in comics, almost all of those books are Batman. And there's a reason for that. It's because people won't gamble on things that are that they're not sure about. But when you say Batman, Scott Snyder, for example, Greg Capullo, Black Label, sure bet. Let's move a little bit forward because I want to talk a little bit about the non-Big Two. So non-Big Two publishers have struggled tremendously in the single issue market, with even some number ones not selling well enough to give retailers a reason to order number 2. And again, this isn't just a problem for the smallest publishers. As Pratt, one of the retailers, told me, a bunch of titles from Image, Boom, Dark Horse, and lower publishers only sell 1 to 3 copies each issue. The retailer noted that even top names like Scott Snyder and Jeff Lemire exist within that range. This is effectively an everyone problem. Quote, "We love supporting new and innovative materials, but at a time when ordering a new Batman series feels risky, ordering a new small publisher book from unknown creators often feels downright foolish."
We got a super chat from Atomic Hound, so thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much.
In the midst of chores while listening, but you guys are killing it today. So thank you so much for your candor and objectivity. That's what we're here for, buddy.
You got that right. Really, really appreciate that.
I'm too stupid to know what candor means, but thank you.
Honesty.
Isn't that the planet on Star Wars where the Wookiees come from?
No,
No, that's
Candor is
Kashyyyk.
Candor is that new show they had with
Wow.
with,
Oh my god.
Oh,
heard it was good. Heard it was good.
Candor. Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, thank you so much again, Atomic Hound. And of course, that is a reminder that super chats are open if you feel like you want to contribute and support if you're enjoying this. We have 30 people watching us live right now. That's so cool.
Nuts.
Thank you all for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. I want to see those likes bump up. We're going to do a draft today. Nothing will stop us from doing a draft as long as we hit the likes goal. We got 30 people watching right now. I feel like we can make 25. I feel
let's
like
make 30.
Okay. All right. 30. 30 for 30.
Sean, one thing that you mentioned with like there really not being any shelf space for new creators and stuff is like a lot of new creators I see, like they're going on Kickstarter. That's where it is. It's
Yeah.
like they have retailer incentives, but
Mhm.
like that's usually for specific retailers that, you know, they might have a relationship with or might be friends with the creator. It is almost direct to consumer in terms of the new the space for new creators, really.
Even the fucking publishers are going to Kickstarter.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Did you guys
Like-
kickstart the Keanu Reeves book?
Hell no.
No, I
No, but I bought Berserker.
Yeah.
And actually, to continue that point, Michelle Fuss, who Sean and I interviewed, totally independent webcomic, like also started on Kickstarter and is reintroducing people now via Skybound, because you can continue that cycle, that build.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is very anecdotal, but, you know, we get criticized for not doing more non-Big 2 stuff, but almost every single time that I do a poll, which we do every single week on Twitter or X or whatever, the books that don't have big names or big characters on them don't get votes. Like that's our audience. That's not like random people wherever. That's our core audience that are not voting for books that don't have creators or characters that they know.
And even the books that are independent by the creators we know, your big names, your Scott Snyder, your Jeff Lemire, they've put so many books out that we know what that number one's going to look like.
Right.
And, you know, we've criticized that on the show several times.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't necessarily blame audiences for not coming back to a store for that. You know, it doesn't surprise me that a Scott Snyder would only sell 1 or 2 copies in his book about, you know, female prisoners who are also firefighters. Like, it's an interesting concept, but it's also a Scott Snyder. Like, I probably know what that's going to look like.
Yeah. So I gave the poll about 10 minutes. We've netted out at 57% no and 43 yes.
Wow.
That's a lot closer than I thought it would
Oh,
be.
sorry. 57-42. Yeah.
I'm surprised by that.
So, yeah, because all 4 of us are no. If it was just a Comics Pals participant poll, it'd be 0 to 100.
All right, let's move forward. It's gotten harder to do this job. With the various distributors who have their own systems, retailers have to work harder to get their orders in and learn new systems, while still dealing with the problems they had before. Penguin Random House packages comics well, but other distributors have issues with it. What am I saying when I say that? Diamond Comics, the only game in town for decades, sucked at packaging comics. That was their job. And they sucked at it. Penguin Random House came in 2021, I think it was 21, and they've gotten flying colors from the retailer polls about who packages comics the best. Comics that come in with bent edges, unsellable in a collector's
Water
market.
damage.
Water damage, absolutely.
That's wild.
The thing there is, Diamond was the only shop in town, so they just got complacent. They probably just don't care. Whereas Penguin, they're a book publisher, so they have competition all over. So they have to learn to make what they do stand out. And I guess they're just, you know, kind of those practices kind of, fell over into the comic book sphere.
The price of comics is too damn high. Jen King, who I referenced earlier, said, I think people are price blind for individual comics, but not to the final register tally. I have that problem.
Yeah.
I don't look at the price of the books that I buy. But when I get rung up, I'm like, what the hell just happened?
I feel it.
It's insane.
It also doesn't help that there aren't prices posted, right? They're on the book, but if they were on, a little tag or something like Walmart, like you'd sure know.
Image prices aren't even on the front; they're on the back of the book.
Yeah.
Smart thinking.
Good stuff.
Joe Field said, he's seen customers use $9.99 quote anniversary issues as not a moment of celebration but a jumping off point. Someone in the chat referenced that earlier.
Ooh.
Those $9.99 books. I don't buy them anymore. They're a joke. There's no. Why would I spend $10 on an anniversary book that features a ton of creators telling stories that don't matter, that I don't care about, for $10?
Look at Fallen Friend. How much was Fallen Friend that came out?
Oh,
I'm not sure.
$7.99.
Next week, the following week, she's back.
Awful.
Like it's wild.
Awful.
Oh, $4.99 apparently.
All right, so let me get through the rest of these negatives. It's the same, quote, it's the same basic issue that we've been faced with for almost the past 3 years now, said Brower. There's so much extra work for no extra income. In fact, looking at 2023 sales, it's way more work for less money. So that's in reference to the problems of all these different distributors. And keep in mind what that means. When you're working with just Diamond's system is the only system you're working with, good or bad, it doesn't matter. When you add in Penguin Random House, Lunar, UCS, all these different distributors that have their own systems, their own databases that you have to work with, you're a retailer, you might not even know really how to deal with all that. A lot of these people have been retailing for 30, 40 years, dealing with one system. These are oftentimes older people who are not necessarily as connected to technology and don't have the time to sit there and learn new systems. And yet they've had to do it several times over the last 3 years. So every week is a new problem. And they're not getting paid more for this.
And you can only get certain books through certain retailers. Distributors rather.
Yeah.
And so you have to learn each individual system because otherwise you're not going to get your Marvel book. You're not going to get your DC book. You're not going to get your Image and everything else.
Exactly.
Damn, that sucked. Imagine you like flipping through tabs just to make orders. Like, no.
It's horrible. This was a big point that was made. Major publishers don't listen to the concerns of the retailers. Quote, at this stage, you can just go back to all our answers from the past few years, collate them together, and realize that practically nothing has changed. My wish for this year is that the chasm between what publishers put out and what we can actually sell gets smaller. Big publishers seem to take zero input from us here on the front line, and that doesn't seem likely to change anytime soon.
Look at the most recent retailer meeting at San Diego Comic-Con. Like, one of the biggest complaints that we hear is the variant issue. And what was their big announcement? More variants. Like, they're completely out of touch with what retailers want.
Well, I think you can even extrapolate that further to the strikes. Nobody's listening. Nobody cares. It's all about the dollar. It's all about the bottom line.
Yeah.
Cut out the public so that, we can keep those couple of cents.
And do variants sell? Yeah, they do sell. Yes. But we've talked about this ad nauseum on this show. That's a scam. It's a scam.
Yeah.
And the industry is being propped up by a scam.
It's inflating the numbers, and that doesn't benefit the long term, because then you start to rely on it instead of making it something momentous. And that I think you can do something better at that level of, okay, maybe you do it once a year because there's like for sure an actual important issue that's coming out, and then you build moments around it, and that's how you build emotional connections to get consumers back, versus, well, I know that every issue is going to have a variant. Why do I care about these things? I know, all right, fine, sure, there's a cool artist, I'll pick that up, but otherwise it doesn't provide that value.
Imagine being a comic book creator, right? Not the variant cover artist. I'm not talking about that person. I'm talking about the two individuals the creative team overall that worked on the book. And your book does great. Sells really nicely. But it had a Frank Miller variant that everybody wanted. And so the book sold really well, but a lot of people bought that Frank Miller variant. How many of the people who bought your comic actually read it?
Or are coming back for issue 2.
How must that feel? Knowing that you're busting your ass as a creator to make this book, and the only reason why it's selling so well is because it's got a really snazzy Frank Miller variant. And I'm just using the name. It's not a knock against Frank or anything like that. And it wouldn't be a knock against any of them. These are tremendous artists whose work sells copies. But that's a problem in and of itself, because that work is not inside the book.
Yep.
I imagine Blade is probably a victim of this, Like, Blade had that, one of the first Frank Miller variants recently.
Right.
I'm sure the sales for Blade 1 are going to be very different from the sales of Blade 2. For a book that, Kale and I genuinely liked.
It was pretty good.
So, yeah.
It's pretty good. And it's worth saying, this is how the industry imploded before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Spiral said maybe we're in for a 90s repeat. I think we're absolutely going for it.
Yeah.
Or we just work Frank Miller to the bone and just have him do all the covers.
They're already doing that. The man's fucking, he could barely lift his head to hold up that fedora.
That's weighing him down.
Scraping out that trashy Wolverine he did.
Now, I saved the most damning quote for last, because I think that this, unfortunately, is true. I do believe this. And I hate to say it, but I'm not going to say it. I'm going to let Bruno Batista of Dublin's Big Bang Comics say it. Quote, 70% of the publishers could disappear tomorrow, and 90% of the customers wouldn't even notice.
Oh, God. That's sad.
And of course it's true. When most people think that comics is only Marvel and DC, and then The Walking Dead and Saga, not even naming the publisher, just the actual book.
Yep.
You mean to tell me you think that the average person, even the average comic shop goer, knows Aftershock or AWA? Yep. No. All the hype about Distillery. How does the average person at a comic book shop know that Distillery is a thing? They don't.
They probably barely know Marvel and DC are a thing. Like, the average reader, if that, only cares about the IP. I'm here to pick up Flash. Yeah. Oh, Power Rangers, they're around, right?
I bet you the average reader doesn't even know creative teams. Like,
oh yeah,
they're just looking at the characters, really. Like, I bet you they don't know when there's a new creative team switch over to new things.
Shoot, a lot of times I don't even, just because I'm such a zombie that I'll just go to the store and buy it, and then I'm like, oh snap, I didn't even realize that, like Venom, like, oh snap, I didn't even realize the creative team changed. It happened to me when Donny Cates left Thor and Hulk, where I was like, oh snap, Donnie's gone, didn't know. So, go ahead.
Sorry, how much of that, though, are people who are invested into comics already. Like we'll recognize it. I'm sure a number of our audience will recognize that, but the what percentage of that population is a new reader? Like realistically, of all the people that buy comics, I would say, I don't have numbers, right? This is just an anecdotal assumption, but I'd say maybe like 10-15% of those people actually who go into a shop might not know that, but everybody else, like us, we'd probably know. We'd recognize those things.
But we are the most activated comic book readers there are.
That's what I mean, is I think it's more impactful to us, and that population is smaller. They make up a smaller portion of the people actually buying comics.
By they, you mean casual readers?
Yeah.
I guess it depends on what you define as casual, because if someone is a Marvel and DC loyalist and they go every week and all they buy is Marvel and DC, and they love Spider-Man but they don't care about Zeb Wells or Ramita or whoever, are they casual?
No, they're locked in.
Right, but they don't necessarily care who's writing the book. They don't know about an Image or a Boom. They don't care. And we can see that because we can see the numbers. Well, we can't see the numbers anymore, but we know that outside of the big two, single issues are a struggle. We just talked about it. So where are the people that are buying those books? They're not here. So am I less casual? Am I more locked in than a person who only buys Marvel and DC because I go deeper, even though we're at the shop the same amount of time every week? There are levels to it. And to me, if you go to the shop every week, you're not casual. But that doesn't mean you care about non-big two books.
Sure.
And it also doesn't mean that you care about the creative team.
Dan in the chat says, I think you guys are a bit off on that. I think the average comic book reader knows creative teams more than, say, film goers know directors.
More than, but that doesn't disprove what we said. I don't think that disproves it. I think if that were true, then Scott Snyder books would always sell well, but they don't. We just talked about that. It's almost like, yeah, Scott Snyder's books sold tremendously well when he was writing Batman. Why? Because the books were good. Because there was intrigue, there was excitement, people were into it. We know that there is some amount of people who will follow Scott to his other books. But I just said that a Scott Snyder book might sell 1 to 3 copies at some stores. That's not a Batman. So clearly people don't care. There are people who don't even know what publisher publishes a Spider-Man book. Go ahead.
Sorry. Matt, he says growth for me, but I'm a bit exhausted by the casual label. It's just gatekeeping people from opening up to what they like and want to share from you read in the future.
I don't think casual in that sense is a derogatory thing. I think we're talking from a retailer perspective, where casual means the person that only comes in casually,
like less activated.
Yeah,
it could be foot traffic.
Sure.
Like,
I don't. Yeah.
For my comic shop, I would be a casual person because I only go in twice a year.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm a casual comic shop goer as well, even though I do a weekly comic book podcast. So. But at the same time, I will gladly gatekeep.
Wow.
Piece of shit.
So I wanted to end this conversation with something that, in the chat, Dan Trudeau wrote up in our Discord server, which everyone is welcome to join. As long as you are a cool person, we would love to have you. I like to say we've got the best comics community Discord around, and I like to think that the people that are on it would agree with that. And so Dan, one of our very, very loyal supporters and listeners, wrote up an incredible piece that he describes as what would save comics. And so to close out, I thought we would analyze this and kind of dissect it. And before we get into it, Dan consented to this. So,
So we're not going to see him in the chat going, hey, what the...
All right, so this is what Dan said, and there are aspects of it that are abbreviated just because of what we're doing here. Monthly comic books were never prestige entertainment products from the retailer perspective. The first step of saving comics is to accept this and steer into it. If the publishers are serious about growing their customer base, they need to once again market and sell them in a space that makes sense. My suggestion is to bring back the spinner rack in stores such as CVS, Rite Aid, Duane Reade, local stores, etc. The market is kids in the stores with their parents, or parents who tell their kids they'll get them something while picking up prescriptions or whatever they're out for. A couple of things have to be in place for this to be successful. The comics cannot cost more than $3 an issue, ideally $2. They have to feature good stories by solid creative teams, not the generic stuff they often sell to kids. The books have to advertise their premium titles, graphic novels and $7 issues, etc., and where to get them. They have to be all-age stories, which doesn't mean stupid or overly simple. There has to be more than superheroes, almost aimed at a more diverse crowd. There has to be a sustained marketing effort on TV, movies, etc. They need to announce to kids that they need to seek out the spinner rack for great stories with their favorite characters. The trick is, the program will be expensive up front and will take a bit to gain the volume required to make it profitable. It will also need tweaking as it goes along. That said, I honestly believe it could be the cornerstone to building readership back up again. This won't make comics as big as they used to be. Nothing is as big as it used to be. This will keep it from dying, build up a fan base for these characters that's more sustainable than other media, help create a place where the corporations can try out ideas, characters, etc. for adaptation and licensing in a less expensive space, lower risk with high reward. Comics could remain their R&D divisions that not only pay for themselves but turn a profit. As of today, I don't know if you could motivate Warner Brothers Discovery and Disney to fund this sort of initiative, but it's the sort of path I think would be necessary to right the comics industry ship. You can't make up for the lost ground, the lost generation of readers Didio mentioned, without serious investment. Well written. Dan is a tremendous writer in general. What do you guys have to say about this?
I think he's right.
Please.
Yeah, I think he's right in the sense that I think that the price needs to go down. Even if the price goes down and page count also goes down, I think that's still the right move. As annoying as that is for probably creators. I personally love spinner racks, so I would like to see them come back. But with the amount of people who also shop for groceries online at this point, I don't know how much that will help. I think investing in like a digest type thing that could be on, what do you call it? Like when you're at the cash register, that area for a lot of places could work.
The checkout.
Yeah, there's a name for that. That there's like a retail name for that. Like the impulse buy section.
I know. Yeah.
So yeah, I think having it in stores that aren't just comic book shops could help. I know Barnes & Noble even stopped doing comic books. I used to curate the comic book section, the floppy section, when I worked at the Barnes & Noble. But it doesn't even exist anymore. But yeah, there's a lot of good thoughts here. The thing is, I don't think Disney or Warner Brothers cares. Like all it is right now is just the IP farm for their other media. So.
Well, the other thing that appeals to me out of what he said too is market them toward kids, because kids will buy as much as the money they have in their pockets will get them. The problem is the companies see us millennials as, the new working, driving customer. So they're vomiting out, ancient nostalgia brands, the Barbie movie, a glow-in-the-dark Ninja Turtle Funko Pop, so that we will get that so we can relive our childhood. And ostensibly, we have more money, even though we're the ones that are struggling.
Yeah, but at that point, I feel like I would push back on the kid piece. I think you can cater the books like that, but then they're not the ones that are going to be driving sales. Like they don't have the disposable income to be able to go. Like maybe you'll get an issue or two, but they're not the people going into the store and coming out with a total amount of $100 plus.
See,
And-
I disagree, Marco, because of the child labor laws that we're getting rid of in the U.S. They're going to have money soon.
Well, and the problem with that though, Tyler, is you have to remember soon that's going to be just child slavery. So
True, and they're dying in those labor
Right.
positions too, so they
It's
can't
getting
spell it. They're dead.
incredibly dark.
Yep, that's
making-
the U.S. for you.
making my glow in the dark Ninja Turtle.
But I think I don't know that that's a sector of the market that you can then grow. You're going to be,
Oh, I wholly disagree.
but in terms of the kids coming up and giving you money, like they're not the ones that are gonna, they're not the ones that are working those jobs, and whatever. The jokes aside, right now, right? But
They don't have the money, you mean?
they don't have the money. It's us. Like we're the ones that will. A parent does. You have to convince the parent to buy the book for the kid. As much as the kid goes, "Hey, I want this thing," right? They'd be like, "It's not in the budget, bud."
So you're saying comics needs the Bluey model? They need to market to kids, but it's something that adults can also enjoy at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
But I to that point, I think old comics used to do that. You know, there's wow, what was it? Was it Watchmen, where the kids are the TV show where the kids are reading like Superman comics or something,
Maybe.
and one of
yeah.
them throws it away, and the adult nearby that the story is actually following sees it, and he picks it up, and he's like, oh well, I'll just see what the kids are reading, but he's actually a big fan. I don't think that's not true.
I would say, including where the kid market makes sense is on that scholastic piece, like where they go into school, it makes it accessible. There's a model built in where the expectation is, oh, I need to have some money ready because I know I'm gonna go buy these books, and then from there you get the people to be like, hey, I'm gonna to sell that in. I think that's where you can get the kids to that point, but on the retailer end, that has to be specific, I think, to people with disposable income.
I think what Dan's positing here is a return to what comics originally was, like the big two comics originally was. And my fear is that, all right, well then in 30, 40 years we'll just be back to where we are. Like you're kind of getting kids into collecting comics so that when they're older, they have that disposable income. They're the ones kind of being these Wednesday warriors that pick up every book that Marvel puts out because they have the money for it. But then I feel like we'd just be back to where we are now later in the line.
But I'd argue you have to make them fans now of every book, and they're probably not going to
Sure.
be reading every book. And to that, I think you used to be able to do that previously because those books were cheaper. And to Dan's point in his write up, like that would be the addressable piece. But then you have to think about how that works practically, and that's decreasing quality of cardstock, decreasing paper quality, maybe even doing black and white books.
The other thing that's different though is attention span. Like
Huh?
an iPad kid is not reading comics. I'm sorry. What their media intake is not coming from any kind of paper medium, really, as horrible as that sounds. But like they're more interested in TV shows, more interested in the movies. If Marvel can put out their own Encanto, then we might be onto something. But I don't think that exists in the comic book space.
I'm going to jump in here. So I love what Dan wrote, and I think that there are definitely truths in it because it's, of course, how could that not be the case? Dan, the truth, Trudeau. But I think that the world has moved on from the days of kids being the activated readership of physical floppy comics. Yes, kids do read. We know they read. We know they read manga. We know that, they read Raina Telgemeier, and we know they read Dogman and things like that. But those are scholastic, oftentimes, as Marco pointed out, and you're getting a lot of bang for your buck when you buy something like that. comic books are no longer built to be cheap and disposable.
Right.
And I think that going back to that style actually might hurt comics. I also think that we are in an age where a $2, $3 comic is not going to have a profit margin that will sustain a creative team. People got to get paid. We've talked a lot about how in the manga space there are problems with pay and there are problems with overwork. And those are $10, $20, whatever they are. I don't know the cost of like a Naruto volume, but I thought they were around $10. Yeah,
It's like a chapter. It's like Marco, like a 50-page chapter you can get, which would be the equivalent of a new issue for
the individual
$10.
ones.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like but not the tankobons.
Man, come on.
Tankobon is the collected one. Versus you're saying like the 17, 18 page individual issue.
Is that all they are?
They're small, dude. Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell.
I'm talking about the volumes that like those thick volumes
The
that
thick
I
ones.
see at
Kale, tankobons. Okay. Those are like maybe like anywhere from $8 to $10.
Thank you.
Live in England.
So that's the equivalent today's comic price of two single issues. That is a god awful value proposition. There isn't enough value in a comic book, a single issue comic book, for a retailer to host it. Like, outside of direct market comic book shops, or for parents to buy it for their kids at that price point. The value isn't really there. And on top of that, like I said, you have the issue of paying creators what they're worth, which they're already not being paid what they're worth. And the price of comics keeps going up and up and up and up. So I think that appealing more to kids is definitely a piece of the puzzle. And as Dan pointed out, this is not his solution to fixing comics overall. It's just a piece of it. So I do agree that it's a piece of it. But I think that floppies are not the way. I have advocated for stuff like, how come there's not Miles Morales scholastic Dogman style ongoing tales for children to read?
Yep.
You hit that, that middle grade region and turn them into activated readers in the future, you hope. But more than that, it's like, hey, Dogman's popular. Miles Morales is popular. One of those characters has a television show. I don't know if Dogman does. I know Miles does. That show's popular with kids. There should be material to supplement that, and that should be everywhere. But I don't know if I feel like you can do how they used to do, like, what's a good example? Like, I don't know that Aquaman would be, like, I think that the characters that you could use to appeal to children in this space is shockingly low compared to the way it used to be. And I think it's going to be based a lot on the MCU. But once you move past what has a movie or a television show, I think it gets really hard, just like it is now for adults.
I think to your point, one of the other pieces is that scholastic format does not translate to the LCS, and that's where you're going to get that next level of reader.
Right.
And you're not building the habit, you're not building the understanding that, oh, if you want to get the next series, you want to continue to explore more, it's not going to be here in where I'm familiar. You have to enter a new environment.
Yeah.
And that's not being translated.
I agree. We've got a problem in comics, as was outlined here. There are many possible solutions. We've outlined a few, especially thanks to Dan. I appreciate you allowing us to use this. Until publishers get serious about, acknowledging the problems, there's nothing that anyone else can do. Retailers can't get it done. They get the bulk of the blame. Everybody shits on retailers. But they don't really have the capacity to solve this problem. Distributors don't have the capacity to solve the problem. Publishing initiatives are the only thing that can truly solve this problem. And I think it comes down to not insulting our intelligence with gimmicks and BS that doesn't go anywhere, being a lot more choosy about what you publish, connecting with retailers to tell them how to market these books, providing them with material. Why aren't there Ultimate Invasion standees? You know, if that's your big thing that you're trying to pump this summer, where's the merchandise surrounding that makes it cool? I should come away with a little pin or something. DC has the fucking... I got a lantern ring right here that I got from DC. You know, that's pretty cool. They just gave it to me. It was free.
That provides more value.
Of course.
You get a better bang for your buck.
Yeah. I
Be a
still have
poster.
it. I thought it was nice. I liked it. More interconnectivity with the movies and television shows. These things are popular. Lean into that. I'm not saying it should be 1-to-1. I'm just saying that if Miles Morales is popping, then maybe the creative team that's doing the main Miles book should be a driver of sales. And maybe there should be a bunch of kids' Miles Morales books out there. And yeah, comic books are too expensive. And I don't know how to deal with that. Because you can't really lower the prices and still be able to have creators feed themselves and their families. At least that's what it seems
everything's
like.
too expensive right now.
Yeah.
No, you know how expensive my avocado toast is in the morning?
I'm out here trying to get a cup of coffee, and they won't let me buy a house. Chillmonger brings up an interesting point. I don't know if I am wholly with him, but he mentions that they just sold Hulk number 181 to us for $4, and they didn't have to pay a creative team. So his overall point is, you know, reprint the important stuff. You know, Hulk 181 is the issue where we meet Wolverine. Reprint that stuff, and you also don't have to pay the creative, the creative team,
That-
here and there.
Isn't that the
That's-
Roy Thomas editor-in-chief way of dealing with X-Men? Like, didn't he do something like that? Where X-Men were constantly reprinted? Yeah.
Yes, and that was something that Jeanette Kahn fought against at DC because she felt that
That's right.
constantly reprinting the books would take the interest away from the titles that they were publishing in the here and now. It's worth pointing out, though, that facsimile editions do well. And they don't come with those same costs like you outlined.
Also, that's primarily the European market, especially for Tintin and Asterix. You know, the guy who did Tintin's been dead for years and years, but they recycle the same 20 stories in, big collections, and, you can get the individual albums for, a certain amount, and they're all really nice, and they are the top sellers all the time.
That's where we're going to have to leave it. This has been quite a long conversation. I sincerely appreciate the live chat engagement. You guys are phenomenal.
Popping
We've
off.
got almost 40 people here with us today. That is an incredible feeling. Thank you. We are at 26 of our 30 like goal.
27.
27,
Just hit
excuse
it.
me. I don't see a reason why we won't hit that goal, and then we will do a draft, and it will be fun. We've got a lot more show to do, so we're going to move on. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that conversation, and keep adding your thoughts. If you've got more thoughts on this subject, we'd love to hear them. You guys know how to get in contact with us after the show as well. The best way to talk to us is a YouTube comment or our Discord, where we'd love to have you guys join us. If you've enjoyed what we've done, if you enjoy this kind of talk, if you enjoy us for this kind of deep dive that, quite frankly, a lot of other channels don't do, no shade, but it is what it is, there are lots of ways that you can support us. Patreon.com/thecomicspals is the absolute best way to support your boys. We love to give you bang for your buck. We love to return the favor. If you support us, we support you. We've got a lot of great content on our Patreon page. We've got a newsletter that goes out every single week. We've got an exclusive show over there called Palling Around, which if you aren't on our Patreon page, you've never heard. You get a book club poll, which right now Secret Invasion, Siege, and DC's Invasion are duking it out. I think Secret Invasion is winning right now. But there was a campaign against Secret Invasion by
For
our
Invasion.
patrons. For Invasion, in fact, yes. Go ahead, Gil.
Do we vote in that? Have you guys voted in that?
No, did you?
We haven't. No. That's why I'm asking.
Are you sub to our Patreon?
No, God,
That's a little masturbatory, I think.
I don't even have money to sub to my own Patreon.
And you also get a nickname, a superhero or supervillain nickname, and a shout out on the show. So, I want to give a special shout out to the best pals in the universe: Thunderstruck Rebecca Alejandro, the Hound of Justice Atomic Hound, and of course the Red Spiral. And I want to thank the Night Stalker Harris Nijinsky, Brian Demolisher Del Pozo, Kefis the Incorruptible, Momentum Mike Elliott, Starcross Catherine Stars, Dan the Truth Trudeau, Joel Justice, Jalen the Sanguine Sorcerer, Neon Knight the Cosmic Avenger, Super Shenran the Conqueror, and Marvelous Mike and Mackenzie. Thank you all so much for your support. It means the world to us. You guys are amazing, and you might have noticed a lot of those names in this live chat right now. These are our loyal warriors, which, by the way, is to take nothing away from those of you who listen but aren't necessarily on our Patreon. We love you all. You guys are all great. So thank you very much. Join our Discord server. Said that earlier, but it's worth repeating. If you want to watch this show live, that's every Saturday at 10:15 a.m. Eastern. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern for Pals Polls. If you want to vote in the listener poll, that is up on Twitter/X right now. And you can vote for, whatever you want us to read. We have... Go ahead.
They're called Zols now. They're not polls.
Zol.
Yeah.
Ay. We have one listener comment today that I wanted us to get to. I'll just do it. This one's from Atomic Hound, who is, a phenomenal member of our community, by the way. And he says, you are asked to make a recommendation for a friend or relative wanting to get into superhero comics. Where do you start? Feel free that any character from the big two and any era is fair game, but the recommendation is now, i.e. 2023. Let's keep it to one recommendation.
This is tricky because I would ask so many other questions. You know what I mean? Personally, my gut goes to Spider-Man. I feel like Spider-Man's really kind of like an intro comic. I think it's Amazing Spider-Man and Batman, if we're talking about the big two. Just because right now they're relatively new runs. Like, you can catch up on those pretty easily. The Spider-Man a little harder because that comes out every other week, I think. But my gut says those two. But I'd want to know, do they have any favorite superheroes? Do they want a team book? I would probably ask a couple more probing questions. But with what I've been given, I'd say Spider-Man. Even though it's Zeb Wells, I still think it's good. That freaking Doc Ock arc that just finished was so good.
Hell yeah, brother.
But and Batman. Those would be my two big ones.
Yeah, I think I'd lean Batman just because it's so recognizable. You don't really have to set too much up. Returns, it's classic. There's a reason it's on the top 10 every year.
The film?
No.
The book.
Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, what? You'd start there?
No?
You're nuts.
Where'd you start?
Batman Hush.
He's asking. I think
That's a
I thought
great
he was
answer.
asking-
That's pretty
You get the
No,
whole
that's
fucking
good.
Batman history in 2 books.
And it's Jim Lee, which is the most accessible.
Jim Lee.
comic art.
Yeah.
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 I read this as asking for something that's coming out in 2023. That's the question.
Well, he says any character from the big two and any era is fair game.
Yeah, it's
Got
just-
it. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so my real recommendation would be Superman, probably Superman for all seasons.
Oh.
From DC, I would go The Long Halloween, and from Marvel, I would go Hoxpox. I know that Hoxpox is kind of a complicated
dense, bro.
series, but I think that the X-Men gives you so many different kinds of characters, and it's a tremendous story. So I think that's where I would go.
I want to make one a Deadman now that I understand the question a little better. I've done this recently. I have a friend who wanted to get into it, so I gave him a copy of All-Star Superman.
Yeah,
And
great one.
You know what he's reading now? All of Morrison. Like,
Nice.
He currently has like the Batman Omnibuy now. I'm like, hell yeah, brother. He showed me his collection recently, and it's like from there it spawned into like Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. He's reading. I think he just picked up Doom Patrol. But like he picked up Animal Man. I'm like, hell yeah, this is. And I've had multiple friends who have gotten into comics recently through Grant Morrison, which is
That's
awesome, honestly. Like even outside of my intervention, they're like, oh, you ever read Grant Morrison? I'm like, bro, let's grab a drink real quick. We got something to talk about.
So from the chat, Chillmonger, who's got a great YouTube channel you guys should check out, said Black Panther, depending on what this friend looks like. Agreed. Top Lane says The Long Halloween.
Pyro said Daredevil Yellow.
That's an interesting
choice.
Ooh, Spider-Man Blue would be good.
Yeah, that
I think Daredevil's a very good character to get people into stuff. It's consistently good.
Jeff Loeb does a really great sort of melancholic look at a character's whole history, so you can get the whole vibe.
Chill says, I'd argue Hoxpox is closest to the wrong answer as it gets. It's not catered to newbies. You know what? It's funny that you say that, and I'm going to ignore the rudeness of that comment. But it's funny you say that because every person who I've ever told the story of Hoxpox is enthralled. Everyone.
I think the only thing it requires is an interest in X-Men.
Right.
If you don't have an interest in X-Men, then it's probably not for you. But I think that's all. I think the art's very accessible, and I think it's a very complete story.
If you know the basic story of X-Men, you can probably get a handle on. The
The
future stuff, I think, is a little...
I think the tricky part is where do you go from after Hoxpox? Because then people are like, what do I read after? I'm like, well...
Because we're having trouble with that.
Yeah.
Hickman's X-Men. Anything with his name on it, pretty much.
And then stop.
Yeah.
Classy Ulysses says Batman Damned, so you can see that bat penis, obviously. And then Zdarsky Daredevil.
Yeah, Zdarsky's Daredevil is really good.
It's interesting because I felt like I was struggling a little bit to figure out what to recommend because superheroes wouldn't be the first thing I'd recommend to people. No?
Here's a Asterius Polyp, and here's a...
Yeah. Yeah. Quickly, what would be your first recommendation? Like, what would you just hand someone?
Bone.
That's not a bad answer. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Marco, you do like to
Kale.
bone, so...
Right?
All right, we've got a lot more show to do, so let's talk about some holdover announcements from San Diego Comic-Con, which was movieless, but we did get some animated feature announcements. So first up was the Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths animated film. So this is following up on Justice League War World, which the Discord seems to think wasn't very good. That's what I saw. I haven't watched it.
Dude, the cover of that, the art for it is like not based on like what I thought like Superman World was. It's like, oh, here's noir, here's this like it looks like a genre piece, and they're in weird genres.
Yeah,
are these chronological? Are they connecting these movies? I don't watch any of them, so
I stopped watching them years ago, but I'm pretty sure they're connected. Yeah.
Top Lane.
Wow.
War was terrible.
If you guys, I don't know if you're interested in Justice League War World, you can see Matt Bomer, the guy who plays Negative Man on Doom Patrol. You can see him play Old Man.
Huh?
Old Man who?
Old man.
That's all it is.
Old man. Yeah,
The entire cast.
Old man. Yeah. First name Gary.
Oh wow. So this one's coming out. They didn't really announce much about it. Just that it'll be out this year. Connected to, which I highly doubt that these two will actually tie in, but we also got the announcement. Oh, that slide's not working. But we got the announcement that Watchmen is also getting an adaptation, an animated adaptation, which I just don't need.
Give it to me. Wait, is it a movie or a series?
It's a movie.
You don't want that Saturday morning X-Men Watchmen animated series?
I do.
Why?
I think this needs to have Curse of the Black Freighter in it.
Yes, agreed. Like
I think this
canonically
needs to
in
not
it.
happen.
Oh, how? I mean, maybe they needed to keep that IP away from the original writer, so they need to be pushing it out in other ways.
I just don't need, like, Watchmen has been done and done and done. I love it. It's great, but I just can't get up for this.
We are cruising to Watchmen babies.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think it depends on who is on this, because I think like some of the straight adaptations they've done, like the New Frontier movie, is phenomenal, but they had people who worked on the original book working on that. So, not that Alan Moore is going to be coming out of his hovel or tower to work on this, but I don't know. I kind of want this. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think I'm probably in the minority in not wanting it.
Not in this podcast.
Well, it seems like it's two people that. Well, Marco, did you want it?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah. So, all right. I guess technically not a minority, but we're divided.
And you and
no.
I could definitely take Marco and Tyler.
Just say no. We're definitely minorities.
I just.
Would you call me?
I already don't watch these,
Yeah.
and a Watchmen one is not. I'm more likely to watch the Crisis one, because I've never read Crisis on Infinite Earths, so it would be new to me.
It sounds like a modern, because if it's in line with all the other movies, it sounds like a modern take on it. I mean, if I get to see friggin' Barry die, that's kind of cool.
Now,
Hope it's voiced by Ezra.
oh hell no! Classy Ulysses says need a before Watchmen animated movie. I'm with that. I'll watch that.
You got something there.
The
Give me a
Darwin
minute.
Cook joint.
Yeah.
Dude, a lot of those before Watchmen books are underrated
Yup.
because of what it was. Like the Amanda Connor, Silk Spectre, Lee Bermejo on Rorschach.
Jai Lee
Oh my god!
dies, bro. You didn't like that one?
I don't think I like
not.
Jai Lee at that point.
Oh,
It had Jay Lee in it. Like, no, of course not.
shut up, Kale. You don't like him.
Oh yeah. What gave that away? Yeah.
Yeah. We did hit 30 likes, I think, right? So thank you for that.
Yep.
So we will hit that draft a little later on. Let's talk about what do we got next? Let's talk about a gang war that's coming to Marvel. Marvel announced not the Bloods and Crips, Kale.
We got MS-13 here.
That's why I was worried. You guys be safe? I don't even know where they operate.
Oh my god!
You guys remember in the 90s when everyone was afraid of the Bloods and the Crips? Like I was in the Midwest and people were like, "Oh, if you see red and blue, you go hide."
Dude, do you know how many Bloods and Crips I know?
No,
Dude,
of course I don't.
I used to know how to crip walk. What was going on in the Midwest? Like
I'd
I was
pay
like
to see
accepting
that.
the culture.
I'd
I
pay.
don't think I could do it anymore. I had to be extremely drunk to crip walk.
Oh boy! So, Marvel's Gang War is coming up, and basically the breakdown of this is Peter Parker is sick and tired of gang stuff, and this is spinning right out of Amazing Spider-Man, which is going into a new arc starring Tombstone, and Peter is going to enact a war on crime, and he's gonna enlist Miles, Luke Cage, Shang-Chi, Daredevil, and Spider-Woman to help him take down their gangs. And the characters that he's going to be teaming with, I didn't care that much about. But I did care about who they're going to be going against. So we've got Hobgoblin, Mr. Negative, the Owl, Shotgun, Diamondback, AIM, and Hydra, and more. Now, I love Hobgoblin, Mr. Negative, and the Owl.
Who's Shotgun?
I
Who's the
have
Owl?
no idea.
The Owl is a Daredevil mobster.
Yeah. The Owl was in the Daredevil show.
What is he just going to release drugs into the community? Like, what's Spider-Man's game plan here? Like,
So I have an answer to that. Quote, for Peter Parker, going on patrol isn't enough, and he declares his own war on supercrime. It's General Spidey at the helm, leading a group of heroes that includes the people I mentioned. Their goal? Take down the super gangs in under 48 hours. But what does Mayor Luke Cage and the city's strong anti-vigilante laws have to say about it? Will Jackpot gamble on getting involved? And is Shang-Chi a friend or foe? They better all figure it out before two classic villains make a game-changing return. Okay, so A, I don't know why there's a question mark about whether Shang-Chi is a friend or foe.
Word.
That's a little odd. But B, I am very pissed about this Luke Cage aspect. Couldn't get the city on fire book. Couldn't have it.
Too much.
What we can have is Super Cop Cage, who is going to, what, intervene in this? Because New York is still technically anti-vigilante.
Yeah. I don't live in. You guys have to tell me if this joke is appropriate. I don't know. I don't live in.
Here we go.
I don't live in New York. He's gonna. Yeah, Mayor Luke Cage, more like Mayor Eric Adams. Am I right?
Oh, okay.
I mean, if Luke Cage believed in mystical crystals that lay in the foundation of the New York's crust that gives it its feeling, then
I
maybe.
think Luke Cage has been around long enough. He probably believes.
Right,
in
he's
that.
probably aware of the crystals.
Yeah.
I don't like this logo. I don't like the. It feels generic. Feels bland. Like none of this screams exciting to me.
Is this going to
Oh,
be in the
I-
vein of like the first 48 TV show? Like,
I don't know.
Yeah.
There is no Gang War main series. There's Gang War First Strike, and then the actual event sort of takes place in the books themselves. So, like, Amazing Spider-Man 39, 40, Miles 13, 14, you get the idea, etc., etc.
Yeah.
it's like classic event type style.
Yeah.
Deadly Hands of Kung Fu.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
It's going to last from November to March, guys.
Damn. Okay.
It's a long ass war.
Yeah.
That's a long 48 hours.
That's a
Jeez.
yeah.
Not even Jack Bauer could handle that.
Word. I'm into this. I'm into it. I'm a sucker. I liked the Devil's Reign thing from before. And,
That was cool.
I like street level stuff. And
Dude, I love street level too. I'll probably read a bunch of this, whether I like it or not.
Is this
Owlman,
set Wells?
sucker for him.
So this is, well, it's everyone, because it's not happening in one book. So it's like Amazing Spider-Man, that creative team. So yeah, Zeb Wells. Then it's Miles Morales. So Cody Ziegler and whoever else, etc., etc. You know, could be good. I'm excited. I'm not gonna lie.
I gotta
I'm
read
excited to
some
see
of that.
Spider-Woman have another book. She hasn't had a book in a while, so
The Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. That's got me.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, that's pretty sick. Perry Perry asked, did we just say Shotgun is coming back? Shotgun is here. I don't know if it's, you know, I don't know Shotgun, so I don't know if like it's OG Shotgun or maybe a new character under that moniker, but we're
Yeah.
definitely getting some Shotgun.
Shotgun's like a classic street level character. He did a lot of carjackings. He would only get into the front seat, and then he'd just be along with you for the ride.
Come on.
I can't.
I rode that so far.
Yeah, dude. I was like, okay. Oh, God.
Yoli gets in the front seat. Yeah, yeah.
Aaron Ruiz, don't know how much I trust this. Dark Web was not handled well for me. I agree. I didn't care for Dark Web very much. Spiral Storm, am I the only one excited about Gang Ward? No.
Doesn't sound like it.
I'm very excited for it. And Dan says I'm just not interested in stuff like this anymore, unless it spins out of a run I'm enjoying.
Ulysses says, it's funny that most Marvel superheroes are in New York, but crime is still ongoing and rising.
Ever rising.
Well, I mean, when the Avengers are busy doing whatever the hell it is that they're doing
Split across the planet.
Yeah, in Jed
Small
McKay's
talk.
Avengers, they're going on dates.
Yeah.
If you haven't read Avengers number 3, that's what happened. They're going on dates. They're going on
Speed
dates with villains, but yeah.
I could go on a date with a villain. I mean,
Okay, so if I could go on a date with a villain, it would be, well, does
Helen.
Emma Frost count? Because,
No.
yeah, it does.
Face
Yeah,
her.
it does.
okay, all right, fine. If you're saying
no.
Emma Frost doesn't count, I got a better one. No, you guys already
no.
know. I'm going on a date with Saturnine.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
That's not where I thought you were going. I'm fine with that.
You're
Yeah.
gonna get squished.
I'm down.
Yeah. I'm down bad.
I'm down bad. You seen her gloves? Have you seen how tall she is? That's my girl, Saturnine.
Bro
Yeah.
making fun of me with a supposed foot fetish. Meanwhile, Sean's out here open with his hand fetish.
I don't have a hand fetish. It's a glove fetish.
He's got a glove fetish.
It's Russell Dauterman designed gloves that I'm into. Oh,
Kate
jeez.
Blanchett hella for me.
Oh,
Does Black Cat count?
yeah.
Hell yeah, it
sure.
does.
Yeah. Ty?
Oh, what's up, classy?
Magog.
Ew.
That was such a genuine reaction.
I don't have access to monsters in the real world. Let's try something different.
Okay. All right.
From DC?
This episode brought to you by Bad Dragon.
Okay. That's when we move on. And let's talk about Invincible Season 2.
Let's go.
We got a teaser trailer. November 3rd is the release date for this, of course, on Amazon. Did you guys catch the trailer by any chance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bro, I don't watch trailers. All I see is people saying that Spider-Man's going to be in this, and I'm confused.
Yeah. That's the big scuttlebutt. So the trailer was cool. It's what you would expect. It's more of the same. I think it looks good. But the big talk coming out of this is that it appears that Spider-Man is actually going to be in this series. So here is the evidence. Josh Keaton, who is the voice actor for Spider-Man in like video games and the Spectacular Spider-Man series, is listed as a new member of the voice cast. And a very quick shot shows Invincible's phone, and he's looking at the issue of Marvel Team Up where Spider-Man teams up with Invincible. So that seems like a pretty sure bet.
And I believe in terms of where we are in the story, it kind of lines up to when that happened.
Yeah, my vague memory of those issues that we read for a book club way long ago is that is accurate, yeah.
And like it or not, too, like that's also like a pretty big part of Invincible's whole story.
Yeah.
So
He learned a lot from that interaction.
yeah.
I'm all for that. I think that's really cool. And it's worth pointing out the reason why this is even possible. I mean, maybe Marvel would consent. I doubt it. But the film and television rights of Spider-Man, of course, belong to Sony.
Yeah.
So, how do you guys feel about this show? Like, are you hyped about the show's return?
I liked it a lot.
It was actually very triggering for me, so I'm not gonna. No, thank you.
Why?
Oh.
That final battle with Omni-Man brought up a lot of bad memories.
Got you.
So I said, actually, no, thank you.
Fair.
I like the first season a lot. Yeah, so I'll check this out. And there's a special coming out too, right? There's a
It
Adam
came out
Eve
already.
came out
So
special.
it already came out.
Oh, it came out.
Adam and Eve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't catch
Not
it.
Adam and Eve.
I've heard good things.
Yes, Marco, I've also heard good things. I haven't watched it yet, but I do intend to. I don't think I wasn't as high on Invincible as everybody else. Like, it was cool.
I didn't care for the show as much as I liked the book.
I like what they ended up doing with, like, how it ended up getting paced out. I thought that was a bit quicker to get in and just ground yourself.
Actually, I think that's what I didn't like about the
I think, yeah, I remember that. I
show.
feel like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch this season, at least
Same.
casually. But I don't anticipate us doing like big reviews like we did.
Surely enjoy it.
We'll see. We shall see. So, we have reached the point in the show where it is time for the history of the DC Comics Implosion Part 3.
Whoa.
Which,
Alrighty.
yeah, I know, we've been having so much fun. Which I do
still
have
like
to
that.
announce this is the last part. This will be the finale.
oh,
Yeah. So, we skipped it last week, unfortunately, due to time constraints on our end. But if you guys will recall, in part 2, we discussed the implosion itself, why it happened, how it happened, what caused it. We discussed how a blizzard, a really bad blizzard, the Superman film not dropping when it was supposed to. It was supposed to come out in June. It came out months and months later. How lagging sales from DC's books before the explosion, which was a publishing initiative on the part of Jeanette Kahn to shore up sales and breathe new life into DC's books and to combat Marvel. Sales before the explosion were bad, and so the explosion really never really got off, and that's why it was more like an implosion. It was a whimper. It was a wet fart. And they cut their line. They slashed their line. They cut the price of comics. They did a lot of damage, I guess, damage control. And so I want to refer to Paul Levitz, who did an interview with 13th Dimension in 2015. Paul Levitz was at the time a DC Comics editorial coordinator. He said, quote, I'm sorry, actually, this quote that I'm about to read is from the Bronze and Modern Comics podcast, which is a YouTube channel that you guys should check out. It's really good. Quote, not senior enough that anyone in the distribution and corporate management side would listen to a 21-year-old saying your estimates are wrong. I mean, it sucks, but it's not as bad as your estimators are making it out to be. Now, what he's talking about is the fact that when the numbers came in for the prior 6 months and they were bad, they were sat down and told, okay, it's time, we got to do something drastic. And he's saying the numbers were wrong. It wasn't correct. They were judging numbers based on things that DC had no control over, like the aforementioned blizzard. He also said it was bad business. Well, this is in regards to why things might not have worked. Quote, it was bad business in the sense that when you have brand loyalty, making any shift like that visibly and that radically has a price tag you're going to pay for a long time. Was it an overcorrection to trim the line down to a shorter line? Probably not. The newsstand business was fading. It was going to continue to fade. The comic shop business was still very small, and DC was not producing very much material that was very good for it by comparison to Marvel. So if you did a trend line from 1978 based on continuing to do business the same way, the most probable, I mean, it looked really, really bad. People did the best they could. We just talked earlier in the show about the idea of a solution to the problem being a return to grocery stores and things of that nature. And here's Paul Levitz, granted in 1978, discussing how that business model was going the way of the dodo. And that it was going to happen independent of any actions on the part of publishers. So, in my opinion, and this is something I fully intend to talk about more down the road, but in my opinion, the direct market saved comics. Why? Because people were already not buying them. People were already not carrying them. And at that time, it was full returnability, which means that if you hit a grocery store, right, with a bunch of Superman comics and 30% of them sold to, individual people that bought it from the grocery store, that grocery store at the end of the month is going to send every single one of those unsold copies back to DC, and DC will have to give them their money back. That's brutal. Imagine if that was the same, if we still had that system today.
Yikes. Yo, dude. That hit hard on shops.
That's the only way it would work. To grocery stores and all those other retailers would never accept comics into their stores without returnability.
Someone pointed something to that effect out earlier in the week, and I don't recall what the conversation was or what the context was, but the effect was basically that comic books aren't profitable even for retailers. So why would a giant mega corporation make space for a physical item that won't sell, won't bring them profit, are hard to find, and hard to keep track of?
We saw it with the Walmart initiative.
Yeah.
Dan Didio tried his best. We saw what happened. It wasn't worth the space, and that was a $7 item, I believe. Those Walmart books that they had, and it had.
And the other problem.
Go ahead. Sorry.
The other problem with that Walmart thing is like the DC had no presented in individual stores. They would tell you it would be it would be on this the book section or whatever. I found it once.
Yeah, same.
In all the Walmarts I went to. They were just a mess, and most of them were just people because it was an affordable price, so people would buy them and then resell them.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not everyone has access to Walmart. For example, I've never seen one of those. I don't have.
They're not in the city.
If I wanted to get that, I would have to buy it from a reseller for probably at the bare minimum double the price. I'm not gonna do that for what a Brian Michael Bendis Batman story. I'm good.
That was the best thing he did in DC, honestly.
I'm sure it was. Not paying $20 for it. So it's a tough thing, and the industry was already suffering from this at that point. And so the pivot to the direct market, this is a big reason why Marvel was doing so well, because they had the foresight to say, wait, we could kill in the direct market. We can make books tailored directly to our audience. DC was slow on that. DC was trying to make their money through the newsstand, who was saying, yeah, we're done with this. I don't care if it's $1. I don't care what it is. We're not doing this. So a whole bunch of DC's books were cut. They culled the line. I showed last week how different the line was after the DC Comics implosion. What the line looked like in 79 was radically different than what it looked like in 78, and it's a shame. The biggest book that was technically kind of sort of canceled, but not really, is Detective Comics. Detective Comics was nearly canceled in favor of Batman Family, the dollar comic that sold very well, even in the midst of the implosion. Batman Family was then renamed Detective Comics starring the Batman Family. Now, I have an image up on the screen if you guys are watching us on YouTube, and that is what the cover looked like. If you had to guess, based on only that cover, what is this book called?
Batman Family.
It says Batman Family in big-ass letters, and Detective Comics kind of smaller and in the little bit behind it. So clearly the Batman Family branding was something that people associated with quality, whereas Detective Comics just wasn't selling. But DC staffers who remained after the implosion advocated and went to bat for the retention of Detective Comics. So this is what Paul Levitt said about that time. Quote, there was about a day or two in there when we were talking about canceling Detective. I think actually it was Mike Gold who was very passionately rose to its defense, pointing out that that's what the company was named after and we couldn't do that. So the book would have pretty much been the same book either way, but certainly it was a better thing historically to keep the Detective name alive. We owe a debt to Mike for that. Imagine if there just wasn't a Detective Comics.
That's kind of crazy. Like that's like there's not an Action Comics on the stand, you know?
Right. So,
Has there been a
Go ahead.
point since where Detective Comics hasn't been on the stands? No, right?
not to
It's been
my
pretty much
knowledge.
consistent.
Not for very long, if ever. I mean,
As far back as I can remember reading DC, Detective Comics was like telling side stories to what Grant was doing in Batman at the time, and then you had like the Batman Eternal idea, I believe, that started in Detective Comics. They had like their own version of that, and then it spun out to its own thing. Paul Dini also had a great run at the time, so that's that. But that's only what I know of.
According to at least Wikipedia, the original numbering was up until 2011, and then the New 52 relaunched it, but 2016 it came back to that original numbering. So presumably it hasn't not been in publication.
Okay. So what happened after the implosion? In the immediate aftermath of the implosion, DC dramatically cut their line of books and even more dramatically slashed their staff. The day the axe came down, DC staff was forced to tell freelancers that their time with DC was up. Mike Barr said this in back issue number 2 from February 2004. When the implosion fell, I and other DC staffers were given a list of freelancers whose assignments had just been canceled, with orders to tell them to stop work immediately. Even I knew that was nothing more than a signal to a freelancer to pull an all-nighter to finish the assignment before delivery. Amazing how many freelancers I contacted had finished the jobs they were working on just before I told them to quit. I hadn't known things were that bad. So what happened to all the Explosion books that were done, that were ready to be shipped out and printed? This was a lot of work that was completed. A ton of books were done and ready to ship that just never came out. What happened? Well, turns out they were released, but not to the masses, in something called the Canceled Comics Cavalcade. I've been dying to talk about this.
CCC.
Yes. As a means of establishing copyright on the material, the remaining staff at DC decided to collect it all and publish it as the Canceled Comic Cavalcade. Paul Kupperberg, who was then DC Comics public relations assistant, did an interview in 2007, and he said the following. I did the grunt work on the CCC, assembling all the material from various editors, arranging it all, and dealing directly with the printing. The printing and binding itself was done in the Warner Brothers print shop, which was in the basement of 75 Rockefeller Center, where DC then had its officers, by a gentleman named Neil. The CCC was composed of Xerox copies between heavy blue paper covers, glued square spine held together by a strip of black binding tape. We went crazy and commissioned covers from Alex Suviak and Al Milgram. Everybody gets hit by a truck, but they probably worked for free to be in on the joke or to get a copy. Like I said, we did this cheap. This wasn't made to last. It was made to be sent to the copyright office. So basically, oh, go ahead, Kel.
no, that's interesting. But also, Hound just said he has a Xerox copy of the CCC, not one of the 40, but a copy of the copy, which I think is really funny.
Hell yeah. And I love the fact that he has that. I wish I had one too. So there are only, I think the official number is 42. It's between 40 and 42.
I think it's 52 now. New 52.
And so all the creators who were involved got one. They sent one to the copyright offices. They sent one to a person who at the time was like a major publisher of one of those like magazines that talks about comics, just to prove the existence of the material. Now, I managed to find the canceled comics cavalcade online, and so I read what I could. These stories, by and large, were not good. And if this is an example of the kind of books that DC was putting out at the time, then it's really no surprise to me that they were losing the battle with Marvel and imploded. Like, they were pretty bad, I thought. And this is not work that was rushed to completion to fit into the CCC. This is the work that was coming out of the explosion. And I thought it was bad. I wonder if Atomic Hound disagrees with that perspective, but I couldn't find myself in them. I'm a modern reader. My sensibilities and tastes are not the same as they were back then for people who were reading books at the time, but I was not a fan of what I read.
You would not like Crisis on Infinite Earths then.
Maybe not. It's sad. If you look at the cover, maybe it's hard to tell because it's in black and white. But if you're watching on YouTube, if you look, those are all the creators just getting hit by a car. And the one on the right says, what, I can't even read it because it's so tough to read. But it says Unemployment Inc. or something to that nature. So it was a joke for the creators. It was a joke for the staff. Might as well have fun with it, I guess.
Did DC ever put this out as a collecting edition further down the line?
No.
Like, I feel like they would be greedy enough to do that. You know, like, let's make money on this thing now.
So, no to that, but some of the stories did find their way into back matter in other series and titles. Not all of them, but some of them. And it's unfortunate because diversity was cut. A lot of characters that were women, minorities, their books were culled from DC's line. Characters that didn't really have a chance at success. One of the most fascinating things that I learned in doing this, and to be totally honest, one of the major reasons why I wanted to do this in the first place was because Larry Hama was one of the creators who was fired during this time. Of course, Larry Hama is known for G.I. Joe, right? But what I love Larry from is a book that was supposed to be a DC comic that ended up not being one. Bucky O'Hare. Does anyone here know Bucky?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Bucky O'Hare. There's some great action figures of Bucky O'Hare out there.
I love Bucky O'Hare. The Bucky O'Hare arcade game was my favorite when I was a kid. And I didn't know until I started doing research for this project, that it was originally supposed to be a DC comic.
Oh, yeah. Bucky O'Hare. Yeah.
The proto Rocket Raccoon, almost like a Star Fox character before Star Fox was a thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's sad because DC changed a lot after this. DC became a lot more corporate. The environment in the offices wasn't fun anymore. Creators talked about how it used to feel like a party at DC's offices.
Yeah.
It was open communication. Doors were open. People were available. It was fun. And after the implosion, there were less people, no happiness. The pizza party stopped. Everything changed.
Len Wein on the Nerdist Comics panels back in the day used to talk about how they would have like shirtless wrestling matches in the bullpen.
What?
Yeah, they were having a blast. Maybe they're having too much fun.
Sound like it.
You guys don't wrestle your coworkers shirtless?
I haven't
Not
done that with
regularly.
any of you guys yet.
I
know Marco's tried.
So quickly, I've just been curious to see if one of these canceled comic cavalcades is out there. So it looks like someone had it at one point, I can't tell the date on this webpage, but it looks like it's selling or sold or whatever for £1,500.
For us
So probably,
dumb American idiots, what's that?
I mean, probably $2,000.
Not as expensive as I would have guessed for the limited quantity that there is.
So there's a reason for that. It's very difficult to ensure the authenticity of these.
Yeah, especially since they were Xeroxed in the first place.
Right. I mean, I could see it. I guess like maybe someone wouldn't want to pay $2,000+ for even a real copy, but again, it's difficult to authenticate them unless you're buying it directly from one of the people that had it originally. You probably can't know that you have a real one.
It also says it's a very rare reprint set, so it's probably like Hounds. It's a
Yeah.
a what's it of a what's it.
Right. If it's a reprint, then it's not real. It's not authentic.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
The facsimile edition of CCC.
Yes, yes. So, for her part, Jeanette Kahn said this about the implosion. Comics didn't keep up with inflation, which also added to its disposable quality. If we raised cover prices, that would be a start of many, many kinds of changes we had to do to get comics as an art form. She's saying that comics were disposable. She's saying that the perception of people at the time was that comics were junk. Junk food for kids. Not different than McDonald's. She wanted to turn comics into filet mignon. She wanted comics to mean something. She led the charge as far as making the paper stock better, because then people wouldn't want to throw them away the way they did before. The reason why there are so few of the rarest comics ever, like Action Comics #1, is not just because it was so long ago, but also because the paper quality was so bad that a lot of people's red copies are just deteriorated. They're not good quality. She wanted to change that. She said it was an experiment that came too early. I think it's an experiment that came too late. I think that comics should have cost more to keep up with the Time magazines of the world, to show people that they matter, that they're worth having on your shelf. But as we know, it took years for the standard comic price to become $1, let alone $2. What are the profit margins on that? In 1990, whatever, if I remember correctly, Image Comics put comics at $1.25. 90s.
But do you think that the increase in price would then translate to people saying, "Oh, this is of more value"? Like if the mindset is this isn't like we're not getting our bang for our buck here, and they're increasing the price, like it's still to me it sounds like the thinking is the consumer still feels it's disposable, and now they're disposing of $1 or $1.25 instead of 50 cents.
I also wonder if you extrapolate from there, we'd be drawing the line at $7.99, a couple years ago, if we had made things expensive way back when.
Well, I think that, again, it's, I'm open to being wrong about this, but my opinion is that the perception of comics had to do with the presentation of comics. And the presentation of comics was that it was cheap, that it was for kids. And that profit margin didn't exist for the grocery stores. It didn't exist for the newsstand. So they stopped carrying it. They kept carrying Time because Time was worth having on their shelf. We just talked about the Walmart books at $7 not even being worth Walmart carrying. To me, if comics became more expensive earlier and story quality and page quality, paper quality increased at the same time, then it might have attracted a more serious reader. It might have attracted someone who thought of it as an art form. How we're still struggling to get people to take comics seriously to this day. It's 2023. One of the things I'll never forget about Marco, one of the first things he said was that in his culture, in his family, comics were seen as immature. Am I accurate on that?
Yeah, low art. It wasn't worth time.
Right. We've been fighting that war since the inception of comics. And the price and the paper quality and the quality of the creativity all are factors in that. Now, I want to close this by saying some words about a person that this is the biggest thing I got out of this whole DC implosion history has been about Jeanette Kahn and what an incredible woman she was, or is, excuse me. And the impact on comics that she had. Someone that I think doesn't get nearly as much respect or admiration or coverage as they should. So because that doesn't happen elsewhere, I'll do it here today. Jeanette Kahn was a legitimate trailblazer. She is responsible for so much of DC's rebound from the implosion in the 80s. Limited series, more mature themes, and the British invasion all happened under her purview. She became the editor-in-chief of DC in '89 and oversaw the rise and fall of Vertigo and Milestone, which are two publishing initiatives whose impacts are still felt to this day. We have a very different comics industry if it's not for Vertigo, in my opinion.
100% agreed.
She was a champion for creators' rights, advocating for and delivering on royalties and other things that gave creators a financial stake in their book's success. If it wasn't for that, creators like Alan Moore, creators like Mark Miller, creators whose names ring out even now, may not have made the jump across the pond to work for DC. And there's a reason why they went to DC directly. And it's because of these kinds of things that Jeanette was doing. When Jeanette started at DC Comics, there were 2 women on staff. 2. She started at 28 years old in 1976, in January of 1976. The first woman and the youngest person to become president of a division.
That's wild.
When she left DC Comics after 27 years in a leadership role, almost half of the staff were women. And quite frankly, we know and seen how women were treated after she left. We've heard the stories. We know all about it. Eddie Berganza was a piece of shit who preyed on women and kept them out of editorial for Superman. Jeanette Kahn deserves a lot more credit for the things that she did and the impact that she had on the comics industry. And she's since moved on and she's done film producing and things of that nature. So she's still seeing a lot of success in other venues. But I think the thing that she did that people will remember her for most is what she did at DC. And the implosion, which some would argue is ultimately her fault, is a blip on the radar in a larger career that, in my opinion, puts her on the Mount Rushmore of important people to comics, particularly to DC Comics. So I just want to say thank you to Jeanette Kahn for all the things that you've done to make comics what they are. And that's where we're going to leave it on the DC implosion. Was this fun?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Good stuff. Good to reflect on, I think, and especially how we started the conversation. It's good to reflect on how things have changed, maybe things haven't, and how a lot of the problems are still being solved.
Or not being solved.
Or or getting exacerbated.
Yeah, ignored. I had a lot of fun doing this. I had a lot of fun researching this. I learned a lot. I appreciate the opportunity to present this to you guys. Thank you for your patience. Thank you three for your patience and allowing me to do this, and the audience for supporting it and showing up and saying you enjoy it, asking for it. You know, in the lull period between Twilight of the Superheroes and this, one of the most sent in comments was, what's next?
Yeah.
When we did our survey that I'm very grateful that people responded to, one of the things that people said a lot was they wanted more of that kind of storytelling here on the podcast, and I'm just very thankful to have the opportunity to do this. And hopefully we can do more. You guys let us know if you want it.
And what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I know everybody wants?
Ice cream.
Oh,
Other than ice cream, and I don't want it because I'll die if I have it.
well,
Sloppy
want it.
toppy. No.
A draft. Everybody
Oh,
loves a
myself.
good draft.
Oh, I burned my card.
We're going to get into a draft, and as you can see, if you're watching us live or, you know, watching us at all, we've got X-Men villains on there. And so this week's draft is going to be drafting a team of X-Men villains that can defeat the X-Men. Now, for the purposes of this draft, you are not allowed to choose something like Orcus or the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. You cannot choose a group. You can only choose individual villains.
Okay.
does Magneto count?
Yes, any character, for the sake of this, any character whose origin is
Is
as a villain
villains.
is valid for this.
Sure. Okay.
So, like, in my opinion, Magneto would count, but Moira would not count.
Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
We're all on the same page. Emma Frost
What if
counts.
what if they were introduced as a villain, but historically are a hero?
Then,
Like what?
Then, in my opinion, they count.
That would count.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh, damn.
Good to know.
Tyler has one.
Bro, I'm chilling in Krakoa right now. I'm ready.
I'm gonna. This will be what I think I'm gonna suffer with.
This is going to be fun. All right. Now, you know the drill. I got my X-Men dice right here. And I'm going to roll them for initiative. We're going to see what the order is going to be. It'll be a snake draft.
Tyler will go last.
Yeah, I had to get out of the wind right now. I don't have a wind filter right now, so
So here we go. I'm gonna roll first for Tyler.
all right. Power of Krakoa, come on.
Here we go. A 6. That's respectable.
Not
Out of
bad.
10 or out of 12?
Out of 12, yeah.
That's a 5. I don't know. That's not respectable. That's shit.
Oh, all right. I'll roll for myself now. Oh shit. It fell.
We only count the one die now.
It was a 7, but I'm not gonna count it because it fell off. It is a 7 again. What do you know? Kale,
Weighted ass.
that is an 11. Do you still want to complain?
Yeah.
And Marco, a 4. So
Ooh.
Thank God, finally the streak's broken.
the order will be Kale, myself, Tyler, then Marco. Marco will draft twice up front, and then someone else is gonna have to help figure out how that goes in the snake draft.
Wait, doesn't Kale go first?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh,
But Marco goes again at the end of this round, and we go back down.
Right.
yeah, and then you go twice because you're first. Yeah.
Right.
We figured this out, I think. All of us watched the NFL
Yeah, we
draft,
know.
right?
Yeah, we got this. We got.
Yeah.
So, Kale, you're up, buddy.
To be honest, I'm gonna come out heavy, and Sean's gonna hate me for
I
this.
know
I'm
what you're
very-
gonna do.
I'm
I know what
very,
you're gonna do.
Very
Kale, do it.
glad.
Do it.
No.
Very glad I got to go first.
No.
The Phoenix.
Oh, good. That's good.
And I don't care what y'all say.
No, she's valid. I would have done it. That was my first pick.
Well, what's your first pick now, Sean? Kale, can I actually have a clarifying question?
The cosmic
Dark-
entity. I don't give a
The
shit who it
the
is.
Phoenix Force or Dark Phoenix?
The
Is
bad
there a
one.
distinction, Sean?
To me, yes. Dark Phoenix counts. Phoenix does not count. But I understood what Kale meant.
Okay.
The bad,
Okay.
the
Yeah,
bad one.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It is
The one
Jean
that-
Grey
the-
inhabited by the Phoenix Force.
Yes.
Okay.
To me,
Preferably not Jean Grey, but yeah, fine. If I have to have her, that's the one I'll pick.
Yep.
well, I'm going to go big too. And I'm going to choose Onslaught.
Oh,
Okay. He took Marcos. All right.
Hell yeah.
Ooh, this is a tough one because I have two options here that I
I
really
dead
like.
ass thought I'm like, oh, I'm gonna lean into the meme. No one's gonna get it.
I'm gonna go. Oof. I gotta go Apocalypse. Give me Apocalypse, baby. Yeah.
Yep.
Marco, you're in a good spot right now, actually.
Okay.
If you read X-Men comics that aren't Onslaught Saga.
Nimrod
Okay.
and I have Magneto.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's valid.
So back to me, all right? Give me the Shadow King.
Yo, why are you guys taking all my picks?
great one.
So then that would make who next? Kale?
You.
No, you.
Kale goes at the top. Yeah.
Okay. I am going to draft. Master Mold. Which, of course, if you know Master Mold includes a legion of Sentinels. So Kale goes twice?
Yeah.
All right.
Just making sure that this person is a villain and that I have their name correct. Nope, that's not who I want. What is this guy's name? That's what I want. Okay. Destiny.
Sure.
Oh,
My
interesting.
second pick, Mojo.
Okay.
I like it.
Mojo's good. Yeah.
So Marco's next?
Oh, how many were we doing, by the way?
5.
No, it
Five?
goes back
Five?
to
Okay.
you, Sean.
No, it goes back to you, Sean,
and
yeah.
then
It goes back down,
Tyler back
yeah.
to me.
Okay.
Like a snake.
I'm never gonna understand this shit. Just telling the truth. I'm going to choose Exodus.
Okay. Give me our favorite villain, Mr. Sinister.
Oh,
Oh, nice. Me, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you get
Okay.
Yep.
Twice, yeah.
Juggernaut and Arcade.
Arcade. Oh, damn. That was gonna be one of my weird picks.
That's a
Okay.
good one.
Frost.
Someone had to take her.
Yeah.
How many are we doing?
5.
Thank God.
So Kale's up or me?
No, it's you.
Okay.
It's still you again.
Someone other than me has to control the order. I am going to pick Saturnine.
My last
Kill it.
pick. I'm
So-
going to do. This is the last one, right?
Did I?
Yeah.
Maybe I missed yours. I have you as Dark Phoenix, Destiny, and Mojo.
You get 2 more, Cal.
Oh, shit.
That's it. So it technically is your last round, but yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Just say the one you knew already, and then you could.
Jason Stryker.
All right.
And then for my
Human.
last pick, I'm going to do the biggest villain of them all. Charles Xavier himself. No, just kidding. I was hoping that would buy me enough time to come up with someone. Marco said Juggernaut.
Some glaring omissions here I'm surprised about.
Toad.
I got 2.
I'm out. I got
Toad.
Toad?
All
nothing
right.
else. I got nothing else.
Damn, I got 2.
Sean, what's that Halle Berry quote?
Oh, what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? The same thing that happens to everything else.
Great stuff.
He'll be inhabited by the Phoenix. It's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Phoenix Toad. Here we go.
Who's next?
You.
That'd be me.
Okay.
No,
yeah,
it's
Sean.
Sean goes.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Kale went. You're up, Sean. This is your last one.
Yeah. So for my last pick, I'm gonna break a couple up, and I am going to choose Genesis, Apocalypse's wife.
Ooh,
His wife.
good.
I'll finish it off with Sean's favorite, Cassandra Nova.
Oh,
Nice.
I like how we're all going for the big ones because like the Brotherhood is just like street level stuff. Like
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's so many down there.
Sabretooth.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, Marco, you're up. You want to go with Sabretooth?
Well,
you.
yeah. Listen, we're going bad. We're going bad guys. We don't want straight up villains, right? Like,
I'm gonna do Goblin Queen.
Yeah.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
Madeline
absolutely.
Pryor. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Used her a few times already.
Man, we didn't. So who's missing? Just so people stop
I
saying
had-
it in the chat.
I
No
also had
Sabretooth.
Mystique.
Yeah, no Mystique. No Deathstrike, Pyro, Blob, Silver
Vulcan.
Samurai, Omega Red, Vulcan. Yeah.
Omega Red. Oh, of
Oh,
course.
Mega Red.
I love Omega
Yeah.
Red.
Yeah.
Gang, gang.
Idiot.
Yeah.
Perry Perry Senator Kelly.
In goop form.
Yes, bro. Absolutely. So here are the teams. Here's what we assembled. Marco has Nimrod, Magneto, Juggernaut, Arcade, and the Goblin Queen Madeline Pryor. I have Onslaught, Master Mold, Exodus, Saturnine, and Genesis. Kale had Dark Phoenix, Destiny, Mojo, Jason Stryker, and Toad. While Tyler had Apocalypse, Mr. Sinister, Shadow King, Emma Frost, and Cassandra Nova.
I love Kale's is just like hit, and it's like, yo, my
Toad.
man Toad is yo.
Well, he'll be Phoenix Force, and then Stryker will turn him into Weapon T or something.
So my other one I was thinking was Rogue because she debuted as a Brotherhood of Mutants
Oh, that's good. Okay.
in an Avengers annual book, but
Yeah.
I didn't wind up picking it. I'm confident in mine actually. I feel pretty good.
Oh, Deadpool. Yeah, X-Force villain. That's good.
I'm tired of him. I'm tired
I'm
of
also confident that mine would wipe out the X-Men because the Phoenix has done it so many times.
him. And also the X-Men just die all the time.
All the time.
Like the catchphrase when Kitty Pryde joined was "Hope you survive." Like,
Hope you survive the experience.
yeah.
Well, although-
Freaking,
yeah.
they had to create a whole island where they can be resurrected so that they can have an X-Men line. Like,
Technically, though, just throwing this out there, the only person on this list who has actually defeated the entirety of the X-Men is Onslaught. He ended everything.
Yeah, and my interest in the X-Men.
Well,
yeah,
most people's interest in Marvel, but be that as it may.
Good book.
the real bad guy.
So, chat, let us know who you thought won this one. It's ultimately up to you guys. Who do you feel won? What's the criteria for winning? Whatever you say it is.
Nobody said the Inhumans.
Black Bolt.
Who was the editor? Who was the head of Marvel at the time?
Terrigen Mist.
Yeah. The Legacy Virus.
Yeah. No, Mark.
Sebastian Shaw. That's a good
Perlmutter.
one.
That's what I was thinking of. Like Perlmutter. That's the real villain.
Sebastian
Yeah.
Shaw is good.
Racism. Holocaust. Ooh, Jeffrey Groom in the chat with Holocaust. That's a good one that I really wish I had thought of.
The villain, not the event. Let's be clear here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To be fair, the Holocaust also villain.
For an X-Men character. It's true. Yeah.
Indeed.
Sean, Red Skull Onslaught, or which one are you doing?
Red Skull Onslaught.
Professor X and Magneto.
Got it.
Yeah, absolutely. Krakoa's a villain. Amazed nobody took it. That's funny.
Technically, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Debuted as a villain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so chat, let us know who you think won. I love doing these drafts. If you've got ideas for
Mark,
drafts,
can you put up a quick poll? Sorry, Sean.
yeah, you're good.
Oh, yeah,
that would be
yeah.
great. That's actually what I was trying to spur to happen by repeating
sorry.
myself over and over again. if you have ideas for drafts that you would like us to do, submit them. Let us know. Because we love doing them. We're going to do them every week anyway. So might as well be listener submitted if you guys are into it. And that's gonna lead us into our plugs. I want to say thank you for listening. I want to say that if you want to support us, patreon.com is the best place to do that. Patreon.com/thecomics pals is the best place to do that. We're always giving you bang for your buck over there. We have a lot of exclusive content, including an exclusive show called Palling Around. You get to vote in the book club poll, which the patrons are always enjoying. And now we've got lobbying going on. It's fun. The more people join, the more fun all this stuff gets. We also have newsletters that go out every single week. You get a nickname and a shout out on the show, as you heard earlier. Lots of fun stuff happening over on our Patreon page. If you want to watch this show live, you can do that every single Saturday at 10:15 a.m. Eastern. Thursdays at 6 p.m. for Pals Pulls. And our next book club is going to be Pulp, actually, which is the Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips book that's dropping on the 1st of August. So nice. Get your copy of Pulp ready. And it's a brisk read, so if you haven't read it yet ever, and you're interested in our chat, pick up a copy.
At your local library.
Or
if they have
a retailer.
Yeah. Yeah, your LCS, wherever it is you like to get your comic books. Join our Discord server. It's always having a lot of fun over there. Everything else at the Comics Pals. Kale.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Comics Pals. You can find me on Instagram only. I'm done. Ooh. I've had it.
Wow.
I jumped. I said I would stay on Twitter. It's not Twitter anymore. I'm done. I'm on Instagram only. At Toto Into. That's TOTOINTOW. You can find my work at kelward.com. That's CALEWARD.com.
Nice. You can follow me at Mr. Marco Enomoto on Instagram and Twitter and Threads and TikTok. And be real.
Be real.
Yeah, bro. We gotta catch up with these kids, man.
Yeah,
Come
you
on.
gotta be real, Sean. You gotta be real.
Gotta be fucking real, dude.
Oh, shit. Tyler.
You can follow me at Instagram, Threads, X, don't on Facebook, at the Tyler Olson. Comics Pals is gonna be on Blue Sky starting next week. I already have the account, thanks to Pete Collins for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you'll see me on Blue Sky soon once I get those invites.
Phil Collins sent us one?
Pete Collins, an incredible artist, the artist behind the Bardic Versus. Thank you. I was going to say Band of Bards. I don't even know what that is. Yeah, the Bardic Versus.
It is something.
It is, right? Yeah, I'm not insane. Well, I am, but maybe not for that reason. As for me, I'm on Twitter and Instagram only at Sean Soapbox. So if you want to chat, hit me up. And to close out, it looks like with only 2 minutes and 5 votes, Marco has won the poll with 60% of the votes.
Woo!
And Tyler and I, who arguably had the most powerful teams, got a flat 0.
Guess they weren't.
Marco made that poll, so I don't trust him.
Yeah, he probably voted.
What?
Probably voted in it. Kale had 40% of the vote. So,
damn.
Yeah. We'll leave you there. We hope to see you next week. We hope you have a great weekend. We love you. We thank you. Until next time, we're the Comics Pal signing off. Take care.